Happy Monday. Is today Monday? Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. See, that just shows you right there. I have no clue what the hell's going on right now. Pretty soon I'll figure it out. We'll get the show on the road. But I'm still stuck in I'm stuck. Yeah. So I'll catch up in a minute though. Trust me. The energy will come. Y'all will bring the energy to me. Once I see folks chiming in, I'll be like, all right, we cool. All right, good. Good deal. So I know you guys want to talk about business plans. I know a lot of people have that goal of starting their own business, and I think that's a great idea. I was wanting to make sure we had some basic rules covered because as a general rule, I think it's very difficult to manage a business or manage people if you can't manage yourself. And there was times in my life where I thought, oh man, I want to run a business. I want to have my own entity. As a guy I met in Brazil said, he called it an enterprise. He was like, every man needs to have his own enterprise, he meant man or woman. But I thought I could manage my own enterprise. And the reality of all that was I couldn't because I didn't have my personal shit together. So we spent a lot of time talking about getting our personal shit together. I think a lot of you have a better understanding now of what that's going to take, from the rules that we talked about to making sure that you were spending on your corporation, You Inc., which we talked about that. Hopefully that made sense to many of you. Wasn't expecting you to actually start a company, but I was expecting you to start a company, even if it was right up here. And paying yourself first. The other part about that, one of the reasons I ended with that right before we started this, getting into investing in your own company or doing a business plan, is because so many people think the only piece that they're missing is capital to start up, an investor. Shark Tank is, that's the thing. And I saw Miss Corcoran, Barbara Corcoran, yesterday, and she was amazing, absolutely amazing. So I see she's a shark, there's no doubt. But she obviously had all her stuff together personally way before she did all this. By the way, y'all, she went from a waitress to selling selling her company for $66 million. She told a story yesterday about how after she sold her company, and we hear these, and this is what makes this all so attractive, but how when she sold her company, she went to the ATM and she hung out by herself. She said she worked all the damn time. She hung out by herself. She sells her company, didn't even think about how she was going to get paid, sold the company for $66 million, goes to the ATM machine to take out $200, which she said she would take out $200 every week. So she's going to go celebrate. So she goes, takes out $200 at the ATM, and there's the receipt prints out. She looks at the receipt and her balance is $44 million. And she was like, just floored, that $44 million on a damn ATM receipt. So it was a great story. I highly recommend, studying her. I think as a woman, as a lot of y'all out there that are females and listening to this, she was a hero. For me, she was somebody that I know. It made me proud to hear a woman up there dropping gems like that. And she would be a beast in any room. Like, she was cold with it. Even talking about how she fired people on Fridays and how she enjoyed firing people because she felt like average players like to be around average players, but above average players will resent management if they let average players exist. So she got rid of average and sub-average people on a regular basis. Anyway, given enough time for people to drop in. So now let's talk about the basics. And these are very basics of drafting a business plan. I don't want to spend a lot of time getting into the minute details. Everybody thinks they've got a great idea. I'll address that here tonight. But what's going to happen is when you put this in writing, if you have this very basic business plan that I'm telling you to draft, then you're going to be able to tell if you have something that a shark would want to invest in or something that's actually going to make money. If you've got these basics, then you're going to know that. And so I want to make sure that you guys are thinking about these very basic things. The other thing that really kind of trips me out is how much I hated writing and how much, once I learned to write for myself and learned to put these plans together, how much things actually happened on the trajectory that I put in writing. Again, we've talked about that. Put it all in writing, put it all in writing, put it all in writing. You have to put stuff in writing. And I'm not going to waste a single second talking to anybody that says I want to kick this idea around with you about my business if you can't send me an outline at the very least, or some type of preliminary business plan. I'm not going to waste time with you. And I'm sure many people are not either. When you watch Shark Tank, I think they spend 3 or 4 minutes with everybody on there, maybe more. I don't know what it is. But she said they actually spend an hour and a half, if not more, with everybody. And she drills down immediately into whether or not this is somebody she wants to invest in. And she said she typically knows right off the bat if it's somebody she'd be willing to put money into, not even based on their business plan, but based on some of their attributes, their personal attributes, which many of us already have some of the things she's talking about. But anyway, I digress. So hopefully you got a pen and paper ready. I will post these. I've already got them in a Word document, and I'll post them right after this in a carousel so that y'all can go through and cut and paste and save it and convert it to something. These will vary a little bit based on your individual industry or what you're really trying to do, okay? So we'll start there. I want to start by saying, for some of you, you've already got a business going. So when we talk about re-energizing an existing enterprise, that's a little different than starting a company up from scratch, and the needs are different. But there's a couple elements. So think about Shark Tank, for instance. Almost without exception, every time you see somebody on Shark Tank, they have sales. They have sales. Sales are a key indicator of your ability to pay somebody back. And investors, when you start talking to investors, one of the things that people really don't understand is people that already have money, like money to invest in companies, most of the time, the people that already have money have already taken their hits. And they've taken enough hits that they know when they're seeing some bullshit, or they know when they're seeing something that's legitimate. And they can differentiate between the two. The other thing is, when you've already got money, when you're in there saying, I got this great opportunity for you, most of them have a percentage in mind of what it's going to take for them to be interested in your company. And there's certain investors out there, you can't talk to them about single-digit returns. They don't want to hear anything about that. What do I mean? If you're going to get an 8% return on your money, you got some investors, they're not even going to schedule a meeting with. They're not going to sit down. They're not going to read your text messages when you're talking to them about a single-digit return. Hard money loans in Texas, most companies, Houston, Dallas, that are doing hard money are wanting 12% on a construction, and they'll do money at, like, say, 6 months, 12 months if you're lucky, but they get their money back plus 12%. And that's hard money. That's non-bankable loans. But that's when they can securitize an asset. They're putting a lien on the home if you're doing a home remodel, or if you're doing something where they can actually lock into an asset. And so we got to talk about that a little bit, like the lien interest that somebody wants to put on. Let me start by saying that what I've learned about investors is that the whole concept of risk is misunderstood by many of us. And when it comes to investors, investors are looking at risk different from the idea person. So if you're the person that came up with the idea for the business, for the company, and you can't get that shit off the ground, many investors look at that as that's your problem. That's not my problem as an investor. All right, there we go. I think we paused for a second. So that's not their problem. That's your problem. Y'all let me know, chime in if we lose a signal here. What I'm saying is, when you start talking to them about investing in your company, because it's your problem, you're the one that needs the money, they're going to drag you through the mud. And they have a right to, because your idea hasn't gotten you anywhere. All you've done is created an idea, and you haven't given it the lift that it really needs to get off the ground. And so you're getting a consultation right now, Cootsie. There's the consultation. Unless you're talking about personal injury, we can get you set up with that. But in terms of starting a business or a business plan, this is the consultation. You can't go into an investor and talk about how you have a great idea and not want to give a big piece of it up. It just doesn't work that way. Because when they think about giving their principal, they're going to give you money for something that you haven't been successful in getting off the ground. especially if you've got no sales. So the two people they see, somebody that's got no sales, idea but no sales, idea but sales are lagging. Those are the only two categories. I guess you have people that have idea and sales are like going crazy, but they want to scale up. So they want to go from a multi-state to a nationwide, or they want to go from a nationwide organization to a multi-nation organization or global, and so they'll get investors to invest that way. But when you're talking about local, you're in a city and you've got a product or you've got a service that you're trying to convince an investor to put their money into, the first thing they're going to ask you for is sales. If you don't have any sales, I don't know what to tell you. Like, get ready to give it up. You're going to give up at least 50% because, or 51% in many instances, because if you don't have any sales and you're telling them it's just because of the lack of money, then you're going to have to prove to them that if you had money, you'd have sales. But they're not going to do that if it means them risking all their money. If you're not putting a single dime into the organization, the only thing you're putting in is your blood, sweat, and tears. I don't give a shit how proud you are of your idea. They're just as proud of their $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000. And unless you catch that person that's just doing a favor or running around with so much money, they just throwing it out and don't really care if they give it back, they ain't doing any favors. They're doing business. And in the world of business, you're going to protect your principal. In other words, if you give somebody $50,000, then you want to protect the 50. At the very least, I want to get my 50 back. I'm not going to jump in bed with you on an investment and treat it the way I treat Las Vegas, where I go out there and I come back empty-handed. They call it lost wages, not Las Vegas. See, investors understand, people with money understand you work so hard to get it, now you got to protect it. And they're talking about protecting their base. It's the same way a financial advisor would tell you to protect your investment. Worst case scenario, you didn't lose any money. Best case scenario, you made money on your money. Well, if you don't have any collateral, all you have is an idea, then you're really not an entrepreneur. You're entrepreneurial, but an entrepreneur by its very definition has an ongoing successful enterprise. You're managing an ongoing successful enterprise. That means that you've got sales. That means you've got an administrative cost that you can quote. It means you've got production costs that you can quote. It means you've got projections for where sales are going. If you can't quote all that, then an investor is going to say, okay, that's fine. I think it's a great idea, but I'm going to need a big piece of it to make sure that I can do what you can't currently do. You can't manage it well enough to find people like me, or you can't manage it well enough to get a customer. So you want me to help you get a customer, then I'm going to take a big chunk. And in many instances, you're talking about somebody that's going to want double-digit returns. They're going to want their principal back plus double-digit returns. That's just my experience. It doesn't mean you won't find somebody that's going to give you a single-digit quote, but I think the chances are pretty slim. You might as well get used to splitting it up. So that I just want to, I feel like sometimes I talk to people and you think because you've come up with an idea that in and of itself gave it gas. Like that's the go. There ain't no go in your idea if you don't have any customers. There's no go in it. So hypothetically speaking, how do you know your business is worth somebody investing? I'll answer that here in a second. When we go through this business plan, I promise you we'll know. So, but I got to get some of you off of this, I don't know what you call it, maybe intellectual arrogance that sounds to me like having a boss may as well keep a job. Some people think that way, and I think that's one of the pieces of advice I give people. Keep the damn job while you're trying to get investors in your business or get customers, but we'll get there in a minute. All right. There's this thing called a prototype, and if you can build a prototype of your business and you can actually sell it, then you might have a better chance of showing the value. We'll come back to that as well. Again, my point here is get off of the arrogance that your idea is worth the world, because that's not true. In the case of the companies we hear about, so Instagram, which we're on right now, those guys built that themselves. They already had customers when they sold it to Facebook. And Many businesses out there, we could go through countless. Again, just watch Shark Tank and you'll see they ask about sales. What are your current sales? And they quickly do the math in their head and they go, okay, so you got $10,000 a month in sales, that's $120,000 a year. What's your current margins? What's your profit? Gross profit? You're making $1,000 a month. Okay, so you're making $1,000 a month, so that's $12,000 a year. So you're making roughly 10% right now. And they look at that and go, okay, you're making 10%. And how much do you need? Oh, I need $200,000 for a 42% stake, or $100,000 for a 20% stake. They're gonna go, how the hell are you gonna pay me back $200,000 when you're only making $12,000 a year? They do the math. You go, okay, $200,000 divided by 12,000. It's going to take you 16 months to even get them that money back, and that's without paying yourself. So you've got to be able to show them a trajectory where they say, okay, if I give you the money, it's going to help grow the entity. The entity sales will double or triple, and me as your partner, I'm going to get that other half. And I'm going to get my money back prior to you in many instances, or at the same time you do. But most of the time, you're going to have an investor getting in there going, you ain't going to be in there paying yourself a lot of money when you still owe me. And that's the way they look at it, folks. So I'm just telling you, if you think that this, I need a mentor, I need an investor. No, you don't. You need a customer. And I will hammer and hammer and hammer away at you at that. You don't need an investor. You need a customer. Because the instant you can tell somebody you have customers, then that means there's money coming through the door. And when there's money coming through the door, they can ask you for your balance sheet, or they can look at your P&L, and they can see what assets you have, and they can see what your accounts receivable are, how much money's flowing into this entity, and what are the chances of me getting my principal back. If you don't make me feel good about getting my money back, then I'm not going to feel good about giving you my money. And your word isn't enough. It's just not. Technically, when you form a company, the company becomes an earner. It's almost like having a baby. And this baby, you raise the baby. And initially, that baby don't go out and bring in money. Imagine it like that. That baby's in the house, and you got to feed that baby every day. And you got to teach that baby to walk. And you got to eventually teach that baby to drive, or that child to drive. And eventually, it goes off to work, and then you start charging it rent, or it starts paying. That's kind of what an entity becomes for you, because it doesn't get a social security number, but it gets a federal EIN. And it's literally this entity that the government sees as a legitimate business that brings in income. And the more you can show that that entity brings in income with you, of course, that's fine, and with an administrative team or a sales team that it's bringing in income, the better chance you have of getting somebody to say, I'm going to help you carry that baby the rest of the way. We're going to raise that baby together. But if you can't show that, you're going to have a challenge. All right. So I'm hammering away at that because I think some of you set false expectations for where this is going to go. And unfortunately, what you see on social media, what you see on TV, what you hear when you're talking to friends and when you go to these seminars is you don't see all the work that happened in the background. You don't see the drudgery that happens. I happen to be over the last couple of days in the room with Troy Carter, who's actually managing Prince's estate, literally managing the music catalog for the Prince estate. And he had an opportunity to go into the vault where Prince has all of his recordings, his music, the original draft of Purple Rain or Little Red Corvette, all of that's in there. Well, inside of the vault, he said there was videos of him practicing, just practicing. And he said that this man put so much into the practice that the practice itself was good enough to be in Madison Square Garden. In other words, he said he practiced like he was in the garden. Sometimes we don't see that. You just see the garden. You don't see all the times he practiced like he was in the garden. And because of that, you think this is going to be easy. And it's not going to be easy. The beautiful part about that is if you choose the non-easy path, you can become Prince. But if you try to choose the easy path, you'll never be Prince. And so, unfortunately, again, we get projected these images of how this is going to be easy. It's not. Starting a business is hard. All right. So let's talk about first the idea. I put a video up this morning. I was looking out at the city. I was in New York and woke up at 4 something and had slept with basically with the curtains open, but that entire fucking city was lit up. And I look in buildings because I tend to believe anytime I see inside of a window in a building at night, I don't know, for some reason up here, I ask myself, who's in there? Like, what are they doing? Why are they working so hard? And you just know it was an idea. That's all it was. It was an idea. And that idea has now basically been planted and fertilized and cultivated. And now it's generating enough that somebody's inside of that building at 4 in the morning with the lights on working. That's all it is. Got to take a trip one time to Ibiza. And rather than face the pool, I turned my chair around and I faced the ocean. And there was all these yachts out in the ocean. And I'm sitting there just thinking. And a lot of people would look at those yachts and go, I want one of those yachts. And I looked at those yachts and I said, I want one of those ideas. Because I literally visualized every single one of those yachts, you know, the little light bulb, the idea light bulb. They go and they put that light bulb up here and they go, oh, that's an idea. I saw one of those above every yacht. Because every yacht is the product of an idea. And that's all this economy really is, y'all. Commerce is about ideas. And it's not enough to say, I thought of that, right? It's not enough to say, I started that. You've actually got to execute on it. You've actually got to give it legs and let it start becoming something that on its own brings in money. And so often when I ask people, what's your idea? And they'll tell me something that's already out there. Well, if you think back to those yachts, or you think to those lit up windows today, 2 windows, 3 windows, 4 windows, 15 yachts, whatever, those weren't 15 of the same ideas, folks. Those were 15 different ideas. Every one of those floors was a different idea. If all your idea is somebody else's idea, then that's not any good. And so when I ask the question, what's your idea? What are you going to do? If you tell me something that's already out there, and you say, when I say, why is that special? And you say, because it's me doing it, and I'm that N-word. No, you're not that N-word. You're not. I'm sorry. You just ain't that N-word, dog. There's only a few that N-words out there. And then you say, well, I got a better network. No, you don't have a better network. It doesn't work that way. We're in a generation where as soon as you start it, within a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you've got a competitor if it's a great idea. And that shit is played out. There's so many companies that are competing with each other on just these little nuances of difference that there's margin erosion for those companies. The first one makes money, sure, but as soon as the second one comes along, the money here gets less. Then the third one comes along and the money goes down more. And then the fourth and the money goes down more. You've got to have what they call a value proposition. What is your idea and why is it valuable? Why is it better than the competition? Why is it going to revolutionize a particular industry? What is going to be so good about it that it's going to take other people, the cost of entry for them is going to be so high because of you, because you've got intellectual property that they don't have, or trademark, copyright. You've got something that they can't do. And you've got a formula that's unique, that's actually going to generate more than everybody else. Sometimes I think we set the bar too low. So I'm not disrespecting. Hell, I've got products like I have a gym right now. Ain't nothing more fucking basic than a gym. And I love my gym. I love my members. I love my staff. But it's a gym. It's just a gym. It looks cool, but I got $600,000 into it. And it's kind of a, break even entity. It ain't no I'm gonna make millions of dollars until I scale it, maybe turn it into Bally and sell it. Then I'll be, but again, what is your value proposition? What do you do different? And I'm struggling to figure out ways to differentiate my gym. And I got all the money. Well, I don't have all the money in the world, but I got a lot of money to put into it. And so it ain't the money, y'all. It's the idea. So this business plan starts with an idea. And it's got to be something that, I guess as a test, if you ever mention this to somebody that understands what you're doing, the industry, they understand the niche that you're going into. If it's a good idea, then often the first response you'll get is, damn, why didn't I think of that? Damn, why didn't I think of that? Because if it makes somebody say, why didn't I think of that? Then it's a pretty fucking good idea. And it's important that it ends up that way, because if you want to grab an investor, you want them to say, that's a damn good idea. That right there is interesting. And part of the reason you can't get any traction when you talk to people is because you don't have a value proposition that spells that out quickly. And I'm not talking about elevator pitch where you got to be persuasive. I get that. But sometimes you got to have the ability to spell out in 2, 3, 4 bars, literally bars, like Fab, like Slim, like Biggie, whoever. You got to spit that out in bars that are magical to where they hear it and they say, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? That's a fantastic idea. Like right now with Pleasant Pistol, we don't have any competition. We making nuts smell better on cats, take a shower, put this product on. We've sold in 35 states right now. And the product is growing. We're starting to get traction, but there's nothing else out there like it. What is your value proposition for people? Why are you making their lives fresher? We're improving foreplay between couples. We're making weekend getaways more romantic and more intimate. You've got to have a value proposition for your product. And it was a lot more easy for me to create a value proposition, or for us to create a value proposition with Pleasant Pistol than it was for the gym, by the way, because there's a lot of gyms out there. There's not a lot of products that make your balls smell better, fellas. There just ain't. Soap, yes, but after that, 20 minutes later, you funky. And from Munda and all that, we've actually got a cure for that. And so I want to use that as an example as we're talking tonight. One of the things I think you've got to know is what your category is. And I said that this morning. Are you business to consumer, or are you business to business? And I said sometimes you got to think of an idea that's a business to business idea. Because if your customer is a company might have $5 million, $10 million, $20 million in the bank, and they're used to spending. And if you solve a problem for a business, the best way to do it is to say to a business, I can make your customers like you more with my product or with my service. I'm going to bring you closer to your customers with my product or my service. In a business, you're going to get a CEO or a CFO or a controller. Somebody's going to go, oh, hell yeah, let me hear this. You're going to make us better for our market. I want to hear this. That's a hell of a value proposition. And if you can come up with something that you can actually sell businesses, then you're going to have a bigger bag, as I say, because businesses have more money than consumers. Typically, when you're selling to consumers, you have to sell to consumers in volume. So imagine selling, an analogy I guess would be selling loaves of bread versus selling pianos. You got to sell a lot of loaves of bread to make as much as you make selling one piano. Sometimes all you guys are coming up with, or all we're coming up with, is ideas on how to sell loaves of bread. And that's great to consumers, but it also takes a lot of damn marketing. You got to talk to 15 times the number of people in order to get the same amount of revenue, which means the same amount of gross profit. Not necessarily, but quite a bit. So know whether you're business to consumer or business to business. And it's a benefit, I think, to have some idea, or at least spend time, if you're entrepreneurial, to think about an idea you can sell to companies rather than an idea you can sell to people. So I'll leave that there. Industry category. Sometimes I talk to people, they don't know what industry they're in. What industry is this in? And then more importantly, what subcategory of industry is this in? Why is this important? Well, because how do I feel about selling art? We'll come back. I'll try to scan back to some of these questions. Selling art ain't easy, and we'll come back to that here in a minute. There's a great documentary on it, though, the cost of everything, or the price of everything, or whatever. A documentary that you can watch on art, selling art. It's crazy, man. Artists tend to not have their work sold until after they're dead anyway. But know what category you're in. So you're in the medical industry, and then you're in a subcategory of, say, medical equipment. Or you're in the real estate is your category, but you're in the subcategory of like providing appraisals or doing title work. So that's something a lot of people really don't know, and you don't pick the industry. If you don't know what industry you're in, so say entertainment, I'm in the entertainment industry. There's so many different subcategories of entertainment. And if you don't know what they are, then how could you possibly talk to somebody about how much money you can make? It doesn't make any sense. Like if you don't know what the subcategories are, which subcategory you're in, then you don't know how much money your competition is making, which means you don't know how much money you could make, which means you don't know how soon you'd be able to pay an investor back. You can't talk to an investor if you don't know how soon you can pay him back. The best thing you could do with an investor is tell them something like, this is the category, subcategory, my competition's making this, but they do it wrong. I do it right. Here's why. I can, with a $50,000 loan, I could have your $50,000 back to you in 36 months plus another 26%. That's the kind of conversation you want to be able to have, but that starts with understanding the category, industry category, and the subcategory. The other thing about understanding subcategories is if you understand subcategories, you don't just understand them for now, what they mean today, but you understand that subcategory for what they mean a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Why does that matter? I'll give you an example. Let's say right now, everybody's seen the little scooters rolling around, right? Scooters everywhere. Well, if somebody came to you and said, I want you to invest in the scooter industry. I've got a great idea for a scooter company, and it comes with Beats headphones, so you can listen to music while you're riding the scooter. Okay, great. It's entertainment / transportation. But I'm going to ask questions like, what are current sales in the scooter industry? One, but I'm also going to ask you to forecast for me what are future sales. Because just because something is viable right now doesn't mean it's viable in the future. So an example would be, while everybody's out here renting scooters, which may be hot, how long will it be before people just buy their own scooter? And if somebody can't tell you that, but they want you to invest in their company, it may be 2 years, 3 years before people just say, well, I ain't going to spend $200 a month on scooters, i.e. $2,400 a year, when I can just buy my own scooter for $800. And I'll just put that shit in a backpack, carry with me, jump off the bus, jump on my scooter, roll to work, roll to go get lunch, roll back to the bus station, and I carry it with me. And so you have to understand the subcategory and how long this industry is going to be relevant. And you guys know, like people will drop this shit on you. Well, we've been around for 20 years. Well, that's cool. But everybody thought MySpace was going to be around for 20 years too. And we're currently talking on Instagram and not Facebook. And I don't know what's going on with Facebook, but I just can't understand it. I don't really feel like it's as relevant as it used to be. Another AOL. Hell, AOL, you meet somebody now with an AOL email, where did that go? And you remember the AOL CDs? At one point in time, I think 70% of the CDs on earth that were printed were AOL CDs. Just because something's here today doesn't mean it's going to be here tomorrow. And if you don't understand the categories that you're in, you're not going to be able to understand how that investor is going to make their money back. Furthermore, you're not going to understand what type of model you have to have for your own growth and to protect yourself. in what could be a very combative industry down the road, extremely competitive. So category, subcategory. All right, now next thing. I wouldn't, time, money, right? We've talked about like people pay with their attention. If you can't explain, and this it sounds sexy, you know, the elevator pitch, the Wolf of Wall Street kind of shit, boiler room kind of stuff. Like, let me just get your attention. Oh man, I'm the best salesman on earth. That's cool, but I'm talking about the in writing component, because slick talk, a lot of people are gonna see right through that. You're not gonna convince me with that. I need you to send me the executive summary. And I would say that another way that I would put that would be like a brief investment summary. Like, briefly outline the investment and what the projected return on the investment is. The same way these people are selling y'all Forex trading is the same way you need to be trying to sell somebody on investing. These people sell Forex. Half of y'all are convinced that that shit's interesting, or Bitcoin, because you see how much you can make. But yet you want to have a conversation with a prospective investor and you can't tell him within the first 2 seconds how much he's going to make. Why would that be interesting to him? How much you can make is very interesting. And so this brief summary of what the return is going to be on this is a very key component. And you've got to be able to, as I've given the analogy before, if he gets on or she gets on the first floor and you get on the first floor and he presses 5 and you press 8, you've got 4 floors. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5 to spit this shit out. And if you can't spit out how much you're going to make in that brief amount of time, then you're doomed. And so your brief executive summary has got to be some type of proposed, like return, projected returns for this person, so they can see that the tune in opportunity is the same tune in fortune. Fortune, opportune. This is an opportune time to get in. This is how much you could make, blah, blah, blah. Then you might catch their eye. That executive summary is how you hook them. And it just doesn't happen very often. The other thing is, if you think you're going to hook somebody with the same old idea somebody else down the street has, I got a car wash. Nobody cares. I got a new way to cook fried chicken. Nobody cares. Now I put cinnamon in it in my mix and shit, and this special seasoned salt's Granny's recipe. Nobody cares, dog. Fried chicken is delicious. I'll eat it right this second if somebody put it in front of me, but I'm not about to invest $50,000 in a fried chicken franchise. It just ain't gonna happen. You gotta have some kind of hook right then and there that gets people's attention and lets them know how you're doing it different. If you're just saying, me too, hey, I do that, hey, me too, invest in me, then you're not differentiating. All right, hopefully that makes sense. We'll come back to hearing rumors of a recession. Yes, there are rumors, but just as many people are saying there's not going to be as saying there are. And so if you stack your cash right now with U Inc., you'll be prepared for a recession. The good thing about downtimes in the economy, I love this shit. I had a guy tell me years ago, go cash, go cash, go cash. Because when the economy goes bad, you just sink money in. That's what Warren Buffett does. Warren Buffett bails people out when the economy's bad. Believe it or not, you can too, on a smaller scale. But that's how you get to be Warren Buffett. He was once a smaller scale, and you can be too. So there was a quick response there. Investor summary, that's a grab a hook. Okay, cool. Now you get into the detailed summary. You've got to be able to describe the industry with specificity. What is this industry? And why? Don't assume that I understand the industry. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, look, I want you to invest in lunch boxes. I'll just make that up. Igloo lunch boxes. I don't know anything about that. Like, how many people are buying right now? Is it a growing industry? Where are most of them currently manufactured? What are the current manufacturing challenges? What types of raw materials are going into it? Like, what are the challenges? And explain this industry to me. What's the expected growth rate? Is it a cyclical business? Is it one of those businesses that has extreme ups or downs? You got to be able to explain the industry to somebody so that they know. And that needs to be a component of your business plan. So let's say, let me bring it up. Okay, I'm doing hair extensions. Okay, sounds interesting, but I don't know anything about that industry. What are the current profit margins on hair? And what's a differentiator for a person that says, okay, I'm going to sell hair, and the guy over here is selling hair, and the lady over here is selling hair. Why is yours different? You better tell me you got a good website. I just got extended.com or something, and tell me you've got a marketing plan. Hey, girl, you better go to I just got extended.com. You better have it all set up for me. Tell me understand how you're differentiating it. And so understanding the industry is a key component, and being able to differentiate yourself to the next part, which is a competitive landscape. You've got to be able to talk about the competition in your business plan. And I'm not saying dog them. In fact, I would recommend don't dog your competition because it's not classy. I don't have to step on another man to raise myself. And when you approach your business plan in this same way, you're going to show the person. Now, if they show you that edge and they want to see that you've got that edge, that you hate your competition, that's fine. Then give it to them. But I wouldn't bash competition in order to big up yourself. But I would have a deep understanding of what your competition is doing. I would have a deep understanding of what your competition is doing wrong versus doing right. I would have a very deep understanding of what kind of pay your competition's making. So if you came to somebody and said, I want to open a car lot, and somebody said, okay, well, who's your competition? Oh, my competition is so-and-so. Okay, well, what is so-and-so sales right now? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Like, why would you want to do it when you don't know what people make? You're just doing the shit to be doing it, or you're doing it because you want to make money. And if you understand what the competition's actually making, which means sometimes you got to go work for the competition. Years ago, I had somebody that was a former employee of mine wanted to start a company. She had a family member that was in a particular industry. And so she came to me for an investment. And so I was like, okay, I'll listen, I'll hear it out. And I did. And decided that I liked the margins. They were 35, 40% margins on the low end, which is good. To give $1, get $1 back plus 30 cents. That's good. And so in the course of the discussion, I asked her who the competition was. So as soon as we finished our discussion, a couple days later, I called her competition. I didn't have anything on paper with her. And to be completely honest, she was sloppy. And she wasn't somebody I really wanted to work with. I wouldn't do this to people I like, and I just wouldn't do it. Blah, blah, blah. You get my point. But I called the competition, found out who they were, and said, I want to meet with you. Flew out to where they were, met with them, looked at their entire game plan. Now I had both companies' game plans. And I knew how both companies went to market. I knew the level of support they would provide for me. I knew their sales annually. I knew what the threats, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. I knew what those things were, and it put me in a better position to make a decision ultimately which one I invested in. And so ultimately I didn't invest in hers. I invested in her competition and opened up a big market. And it was cool. Sold it, did my thing or whatever for a little while, and that's what I sold right before I went back to law school. But sometimes you need to go to work for the people you plan on competing with. I've had lawyers interview with us that want to go to work for us. And I've asked simple questions of them right off the bat. What do you consider good money? And if that number is a huge, huge number, then I'm probably not going to hire you because you're too ambitious. And if you're too ambitious, it means you want to compete with me, which means you're going to come in and steal my sauce. So you ain't getting hired. Nothing wrong with that. But nothing says you can't go work for your competition to know you're competitive, to be able to put a competitive analysis together. It's nothing like getting paid to go to school. And that's one way to learn your competitor's business. And I don't care what it is. If you understand it, you're all the better. All right. So industry description, know your industry, know your competition. Now with your idea, you've got to be able to talk about specifically what problem your product or service is solving. What problem it's solving. In other words, this is the differentiator. This is what your competition is doing wrong and what you plan on doing different that's going to revolutionize the industry. That takes a lot of work. That's that light on in that building at 4:30 this morning. That's what that was. That's not, I'm watching Atlanta Housewives. If you want this idea, you got to turn that shit off like we talked about, and you got to dig down deep and figure out what it is. You got to be a problem solver. And so that's got to be part of your competitive strategy, or excuse me, your business plan is what is it specifically, what void in this category of industry, what void are you going to fill? What solution are you bringing to the table that makes somebody sit across from you and go, that's some good shit. Like, how come I didn't think of that? And then you've got to be able to show them how you're going to do it. That's literally your funding requirements are going to spell out how you're going to build this, how you're going to manufacture it, the raw materials. You need to include administrative costs in there, which would include specialists, accounting, how to HR, sourcing, hiring, recruiting. You need to have all these elements in there. You can Google this, folks. You can just Google a business plan. If you're too lazy to fill the stuff in, then be extremely happy with your current situation, because that's what you're going to continue to have, your current situation. If you're not too lazy to fill all those things in, then your situation's probably going to change and you'll elevate yourself. That's how you get to a bigger account. But if you can't go into this situation with a prospective investor and tell them what sourcing costs are going to be for staff over the next 2 years, or maybe you're telling them I'm doing it all myself, that's fine, but aren't you going to pay yourself? And if you can't tell them what your pay is, so if you make widgets, let's say you make one widget an hour, you're manufacturing them, what's your pay? Nothing? Well, how the hell are you going to eat? How are you going to keep making widgets? You just want me to give you 10 grand and you just figure out what the hell to do with it? That it don't work that way. And I'm glad it doesn't, because this way, the way we're talking about, actually forces people to put down, you know what, no, I'm going to make $200 a week. I'll make $500 a week. And then what happens is the investor says, okay, you get one widget an hour, $500 a week, that's 40 hours, that's what, $80? $80 a day, something like that, right? So you gotta make 8 widgets a day, $10 a widget, whatever. And they'll do the math like that, and you put that into the business plan so that you know you're getting paid. Your taxes, gotta put that in your business plan. Again, all this you can Google, and you can find these spreadsheets out there. They're out there. Google templates. Don't always search for look at the search results. Look at images, or when you search, do business plan template and do Word doc, or business plan template PDF. And then you'll get a PDF that you can download, print it, and actually start filling this stuff in. And that's where you can start asking questions, remember, when you're sitting down with somebody. All right, so startup funding versus funding requirements. Startup funding, you got no sales. No sales. Funding requirements, maybe somebody that's already got sales, so they want to scale their business. It's time to get bigger. Look, I got this thing going, but I'm only selling to one city. If you can give me some money, here I'll show you how I can through economies of scale, I can produce 3 times as much product and double the margins or triple the margins with economies of scale, buying more raw materials, or better utilizing my staff, improving efficiency, whatever, and then I can actually pay you back quicker. So administrative costs, production costs, marketing costs need to be in there too. How are you going to advertise? That needs to be in your business plan. How much are you going to spend on advertising, and what's going to be your cost of acquisition? In other words, if you tell me, well, I'm just going to advertise on Facebook, or I'm just going to buy Google AdWords or Google Click, I'm going to do a pay-per-click with Google. That's cool. But you can spend $500 a week and not get any sales. So you can spend $2,300, $2,400 a month and not have any sales. Those are ad costs. That adds up quick. That's $24,000 a year. And right now, if you ain't got no money and then you telling somebody, I want you to invest, but you need $24,000 a year in marketing budget, you better know that up front. And you need to be asking them for that up front. Otherwise, you're going to have a product, you're going to be sitting on that runway. Shit, I almost did that damn Eminem song talking about I do know one thing, though. Ideas, they come and go. He was talking about that runway. So your shit going to sit on the runway if you don't have all this done. All right, so we talked about a lot of things. I'll put a carousel together and post it. Now I'm going to go in and we'll talk about some specific questions. I'm rushing home to revise my business plan. Yeah, a lot of people need to revise business plans, but I'm telling you folks, don't lose your optimism with what I'm saying now. I don't want to hear any negative shit. This is glasses half full. You can do it. Like I said this morning, you know what's going to, if you don't do it, well, who's going to do it if you don't? Not you. Who's going to do it if you don't do it? Not you. And it should never be not you. It should be you. And remember, this first time out, we're not talking about failure. I hate that talk. We're talking about results. That's it. So you just want to try to get your first iteration. V1. I'll give you this example. We're on Instagram right now. How many times have you had to do an Instagram update since you've had the product? Probably 100 times. That's the way the world works. They call it iterative process, iterations, versions, V1, V2, V3. That's an accepted model. This is version 1, this is version 2, this is version 3. You just want to put your best effort, best foot forward on V1. Somebody said I thought I was wrong for using a template. You're not. The templates are great starts. You know, most art is just a form of imitation. Most creation or ideas is picking up on somebody else's existing idea and making it better. Uber is just a better version of Taxi. So what the hell's wrong with the template? Taxi was the template that Uber used. They said, how can they make it better? Same thing with your business plan. Take somebody else's business plan. Moreover, if you want to do a specific industry, then Google business plan for the specific industry and look at the things inside of there. Or find a competitor or somebody that's in that industry or subcategory that maybe is publicly held and print out their annual report and start looking at their expenses and look at what type of things they got to pay for. Ion, what's up, man? Hey, I gotta link up with Ion. Hold on. I'm gonna follow you right after this, man. We need to talk about your business plan. We did meet at the Black Male Summit. And I know you already got one. My man's already got one written down, and he's like half the age of all y'all. Chestnut checkers. I don't know what else to do. I love everything beauty, but my funds are getting to the point where I can't eat. Yeah, beauty's tough. I mean, you selected an industry where you're beating yourself up. And so there's not much you can do in the beauty industry that hasn't already been done. And you look at the people that are coming into it that are getting off the ground, it's because they're using their name. They've got an established name. That's a competitive advantage. But if you're starting from ground zero and you're just trying to do lipstick or clothing or ass shots or whatever the hell it is you're trying to do in beauty, good luck. I mean, I personally would never invest in it because it's also very, what's the word I'm looking for? It changes. Like what everybody considers great today, they won't consider great tomorrow. So beauty's a tough one. And I almost think if you're an idea person, you're very creative, find something different than beauty. I know you don't want to hear that, ladies. I'm sorry. But unless you've got a value proposition for why your approach to beauty is better than everybody else, if you run it by 10 people and they'll go, that's dope, that's great, then cool. And you can't be able to whoop their ass. If you can whoop their ass and they tell you it's great, that's because you can whoop their ass. I'm talking about people that ain't going to lie to you. Like the people that tell you got a little booger flake in your nose. Those are the people you want to ask about your business plan. The people that tell you got black beans stuck in your teeth after what's it called? The Mexican restaurant. Those people are the people you want to talk to that'll tell you your shit, because then you're going to know you're getting the real. I offer free delivery to local customers with a minimum purchase of $800 to get 3 bundles deal. Still not where I want to be with the market. So trying to sell clothes and free delivery, is that what you're doing? I guess if you're doing clothes, again, everybody's got an online boutique now. Everybody. Me too. Me too. Me too. I don't know, man. It's like selling the ABCs. Somebody's already sold that shit. Here, I got letter B. I got letter C. Well, I do E in a cursive. Nobody cares though. I really hope you can figure that out. I don't have an answer for you. How did I come up with I just got hit? Sitting in an office, well, we're running out of time, but it's sitting in an office at 2:30 in the morning working. Outside was a club. Club closes. I heard an accident outside. I'm working, hear the accident, the crash, and I go, well, shit, somebody must have just got hit. And then it hit me. And I go in and I bought the website, ijustgothit.com, and I bought the vanity phone numbers. We're going to talk about marketing plans. And all of y'all with the Gmail, you got to get rid of that. You got to have the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything for your company, all the way around. I just got hit for everything. You got to be able to trademark it. I'm looking for, what if you need help with your business plan? No one I know gets it. Yeah, well, if you got to get it, it may not be great. I'm sorry, I got to tell you that. If it takes a lot to get it, maybe maybe it's the mentor. Remember the 3 expert rule. Take that business plan to somebody that actually understands the industry. Think of everything that might go wrong. I'm looking for any thoughts on the state of the economy, recession. We talked about that. Or if they can make sorry, we lost connection. Peanut butter flavored bread. All right, y'all don't. There's no questions here, so I'm gonna just give you like an idea deal. Then we'll end with that. So you don't need the link. You need customers. How many customers you got? What are your sales? That's when the conversation starts happening. What are your sales? And everybody wants to link up. Again, investors are not going to, yes, this will replay. Investors are not going to waste time with you if you don't have sales. You've got to show sales because that's the only way they can get their money back. You got clients. What are sales? What are the sales numbers? Revenue. That's the key. And so if you can tell somebody revenue, you say, these are my expenses and these are my revenues, then somebody can talk about what the margins are. If you got margins already, then that's the recipe. Profit. All right, I got 1:59. So, yeah, now it's time to sell. Sell. And it takes time. It really does. So the idea, what I would say is if you got revenue, then I would say DM me and send me that revenue model. I can give you an idea. Right now, I'm not looking to invest in anybody. I'm trying to buy a building right now, and that's where my money's going. Actually, a couple. So, and my own businesses. So I'm not investing in anybody's companies right now, but I can guide you guys on how to get investors. And maybe early next year, Q1, Q2, we'll be talking about investing. We've actually talked about trying to figure out a way to invest in more than one company a quarter, but we're looking for people that actually have revenue. So you have to have something that better than an idea to bring to the table. That is so key. You have to have more than an idea. The idea is not enough. You got to already have customers. That's proof. That's proof. It's a bit like, I got a great song. Well, play it for me. Play it for me. And then play it for the crowd after. No, you have to already have played the song for the crowd. And the crowd's got to be going, that shit's dope. And if the crowd's saying that, then the investor's going to come in and say, all right, let me hear it. And they're going to invest. But other than that, people just, it's tough, man. I know it's difficult, but that's the way it should be. Don't need investments, just reassurance. I get it. Car business is good, decent margins on it. From what I've heard with the car business, you just have to be able to carry enough inventory and move it quick enough to cover your costs. All right, I got 8 seconds.